Hey fellas, Erik Ten Hag has been confirmed as Manchester United's next manager. We'll get into the gory details of all of that in this video, as well as speak about this whole notion of patience in football, which is very much a dying concept, isn't it? But beyond that, it's Friday, so we'll have a more lax video today. How are you? How have you been doing this week? Me? I had a wild start thanks to this past weekend, hence no weekend recap, but in the end it was a solid one. Really happy with how the Unai Emery video turned out. I mean, check it out if you haven't, just click the card at the top of the frame. But other than that, let's talk some bald supremacy. Shit, I shouldn't have plugged my Unai video a second ago because, well, I already did a video on what Ten Hag is all about 5 months ago now. So if you want to get to know him, his history, you know, he worked under Guardiola at Bayern as a coach of Bayern 2, his tactics, his temperament, how he deals with players, his strengths and weaknesses, I would highly recommend watching that video. My boy Mark Geschwin jumped in to give me the honest lowdown on Ten Hag, so definitely check that out if you're interested. Yes, use the magic clicky button above my head to get sent straight to that video. But to give you the Spark Notes version of him, he has done incredible work at Ajax, developing a very clear attacking identity for his team and giving youth players a chance to prove themselves without, throwing them to the wolves, so to speak. Some of the biggest complaints I've seen from some of my friends who support Ajax, by the way, shout out We Talk Ajax, a great channel that covers Ajax in English, and friends of Rabona TV. A lot of issues that people have with Ten Hag surround his stubbornness when it comes to not rotating his squad enough, and how he needs to work on his substitutions and game management at times. But aside from that, they're ultimately extremely sad to see Ten Hag go, and finding a successor that can match his level at Ajax will be incredibly difficult. As for United, they have signed him to a contract that starts this July and ends in June of 2025. That makes for 3 seasons, of which you should have a pretty good idea whether he's a fit or not. And speaking of which, one thing that will hopefully be a refreshing change amongst the United supporters, and they aren't the only ones guilty of this, by the way, but they are the only ones who we care about for this video, is having a little patience, man. What happened to the good old days of, suffering with a shit manager for 2-3 seasons? I'm kidding. Ten Hag is definitely not a shit manager. That was just a shit joke. But honestly, everyone wants results now. They want to win now, at all costs, because they see their rivals winning and they can't bear seeing them win, so they have to get results yesterday so that they can drop some bomb-ass tweets to absolutely destroy rival supporters on the internet. Now. But honestly, we've really moved away from patience in football. We've really gotten way too far away from that. Now, of course, patience is a bit of a trade-off in a lot of respects. There has to be something that the supporters identify as an area of bringing them hope. For Arsenal and Arteta, patience was showed because you could see how the team was slowly improving under the manager. Plenty was spent in the transfer market, and the utilization of young, talented attackers from the club's academy brought hope for the sun to shine once again on that Emirates pitch. With Liverpool, there were bits and pieces in the squad that looked good, but there was hope for the supporters thanks to the kind of football that Klopp was playing. While there was a ton of work to do, you could see that with time and slowly adding to the squad, Liverpool could be an incredibly dangerous team. Oh, and charisma goes a long way as well when it comes to Klopp. As far as how proven Ten Hag is versus Klopp when he showed up in the Premier League, you could argue that they are relatively equal as far as accomplishments go, but perhaps give Klopp the edge given how, well, 1, he unseated Bayern previously, and 2, had made a Champions League final. Ten Hag came close. Ten Hag's Ajax is always considered to be first or second in the table, has one of the best academies in Europe, and is one of the most well-run clubs in Europe. The same couldn't be said of Dortmund at the time, at least. I'm getting on a bit of a comparison tangent here, which is not my intention, so my bad. But we roll with it sometimes, Basically, I'm just trying to say that patience for a manager is a bit of a give and take. If there is a coherent vision and path forward, then it may be easier to accept that you won't be able to win things for a season or 2. It took Klopp from 2015 to 2019 to win a trophy for Liverpool, and patience was afforded to him because the product on the pitch was getting better and better with every season that passed. And I think that Manchester United supporters need to show similar patience with Ten Hag. Look at Arteta. There have been times where, Arsenal were struggling around the bottom of the table at the beginning of the season, and in a lot of other scenarios, we would have seen him sacked, chop and change, move on to another manager. But I'm a little bit optimistic that we're starting to move away from that a little bit more. With knee-jerk signings come knee-jerk decisions to sack these managers when things start to go poorly for them. So hopefully, and it seems like they have, United have done their due diligence in scouting out Erik Ten Hag, seeing what he's all about, seeing what his vision for United would be for the future, and they'll give him the time that he needs in order to execute on that vision. They need to accept that the focus isn't to win things immediately. That kind of short-termism that bled from, supporters' expectations into the decision makers' brains is exactly why they're in this mess now, because it is abundantly clear that Man United has a lot of work to do with this squad. We're talking almost a complete overhaul in most positions of the pitch, as Rangnick himself spoke of recently when he said, quote, "There will be a rebuild for sure. That was obvious in the first 3 or 4 weeks for me." And before anyone discredits him on the basis of how poorly United have been playing recently, you need to have a bit of perspective. Yes, he is a massive character in modern football because he developed gegenpressing. He's perhaps one of the more influential figures in modern football because of that. However, inventors often come up with something only for others to go on and perfect it and make a better iteration. While his coaching record in Germany was respectable, he was never a top manager. Where he really became an outlier is in his club building. I mean, Red Bull can thank him for completely building Leipzig from the ground up, developing Salzburg and Liefering, and look at where they all are within a decade of working with him, playing regularly in the Champions League knockout rounds. That's crazy. He did a similar thing at Hoffenheim as well. Not to the extent of his Red Bull achievements, but still very respectable. And so you can question Rangnick, the manager, but it would be wise to allow Rangnick, the technical director of football, or whatever his title will be, let's call him Rangnick the club builder, sounds like a very Viking name, but it would be wise to listen to Rangnick the club builder, as he will help revolutionize the academy, United's recruitment and scouting, which is in dire need of a revamp, and so much more. Speaking of transfers, Rangnick has said recently that United could possibly reach Liverpool's level in, quote, 2 to 3 windows if you know what you are looking at. I scoffed at that, of course, because I think the problems in the squad are a lot deeper in some cases, but I guess there are sort of 2 things to consider here. One, in saying, if you know what you're looking at, that of course implies that Rangnick will look more at talent and how a player complements the rest of the squad, and Ten Hag's vision, which is incredibly important, versus signing players on their name and notoriety alone, just because the pull of Manchester United could bring them in. The second aspect will be just how much financial backing Rangnick and in turn Ten Hag will be afforded. Pun intended, by the way, I'm shameless with it. There have been plenty of rumors about a £200 million war chest, which, by the way, why has war chest become the go-to phrase when speaking of money managers will be allowed to spend? I mean, I guess it sounds sexier than budget, as that sounds very, Excel spreadsheets and glasses pushers. Someone who sort of resembles me. Someone who looks like me, something they would get excited about. But maybe I'll start using war chest instead of wallet or budget. Hey, Adrian, you coming out tonight? Yeah, man, I should have enough funds in the war chest. Anyways, assuming they have the funds afforded to them, perhaps some of United's signings will be less glamorous on paper, and you will see less, Sanchos and more Moussa Diaby's. Maybe that's a bad example, as Diaby is quite sought after as well. But he won't have the English tax on him. Less Maguires and more Willy Orbans, that kind of thing. And yes, I use 2 Bundesliga examples, one of which from the Red Bull family, because I have broken brain, and those were the first examples that I thought of when I thought of who Rangnick might be looking at. But even if they are afforded a lot of money and they get their recruitment right, to say that United could be at Liverpool's level in 2 to 3 windows is hard to believe. And yes, I can disagree with Rangnick without saying that he is deluded or taking all credibility away from him, because clearly he isn't. But he kind of contradicted himself at one point, because he also said, quote, "It's embarrassing, it's completely disappointing and also humiliating, but we've got to accept that they're 6 years ahead of us. When you compare that squad that Liverpool has with the one that Jurgen inherited when he came 6 years ago, I think at the end of his first season, they finished 8th. So they are 6 years ahead on the one hand, but they can also reach them in 2 to 3 transfer. I don't get it. I think that United fans need to strap in for a fair few years of development with the hopes of maybe winning a Carabao Cup along the way or something like that. With Rangnick working alongside Ten Hag, this has the potential to be a special partnership, and it could bring some magnificent results for them so long as they are given the proper amount of time to do so. A club like United, a club who has spent more money on transfers than any other club in the world since 2012-13, according to these numbers from CIES, I like to think that they could afford to miss the Champions League for a season or two while they rebuild, a luxury that some other clubs may not have if they wish to have sustained success near the top of the table. The biggest question is, will the supporters actually allow the club to give Ten Hag a chance? You can both question the manager's decisions while also backing him and allowing him to go through his due process with what he believes is the best for United's growth. Just trust him, trust Rangnick, and get ready to cringe, guys. Trust the pro. I couldn't even say it. I couldn't stomach keeping it in the edit either, so shout out editor Adrian for stopping me short there. But I think that about covers it here. A little Ten Hag, a little Rangnick, a little discussion on patience and expectations. We covered a few things in this video. I'm proud of you for making it this far. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and if you're not new, then thanks for coming back, and have a great weekend. Ciao.